think for some reason, which I cannot possibly explain, I have always been involved in, interested by Britain, England, English themes. The themes of this remarkably irritating, paradoxical country. It's not the best recipe for box office success, but there you are.
Whatever he thought of this country, he railed against it. He was never happy out of it. He was very British, although he was Scots. He was also, I think, from his public school background, very English in his concerns for the language and the institutions. And he was trying to create images of this country.
Right, what do you want? Come on, he's ready. Come on.
After they've finished work, the boys usually make for Albert's, one of the cafes round the garden that's open all night.
It was quite clear to Lindsay Anderson and his friend Carol Rice that it was impossible to break into the British cinema coming straight out of a university. The only way to get into cinemas was to make documentaries.
We were all sort of socialists. But the films weren't at all, in any sense, polemical or programmatic or anything like that. They actually took their cue from, I suppose, the cinema of Humphrey Jennings. That is to say, working from observation of unrehearsed human details.
We were very conscious of, or I was very conscious, of the need to be what I'd call poetic, to fashion the material into something, and not certainly sit down and have a lot of talking heads blathering into the camera, and in a way that's pretty uninteresting, I think.
It was never a school or an organization or an office or a company. It was an idea. And everybody went on to do other things. I mean, Lindsay, for instance, went on to do a lot of theatre.
I was assigned to Lindsay as an assistant at the Royal Court. I'd never met him before. And my first memory, rather than even being about the play, is Lindsay taking me off to the transport cave and rather putting me on the mat to find out if I was going to work all right with him. And as I remember, he was very anxious to kind of challenge anything he thought of as being middle class, woolly-minded, conventional. But I think everyone felt that something very exciting and new was happening. We were going to change things. I mean, we were perhaps that naive at that point, which of course excited Lindsay very much. And I think he really thrived on that atmosphere. And probably I think the court was as near a spiritual home as Lindsay ever found.
I don't know, it just seemed actually quite natural then. In the process of this thing, and you put it down, and then really we're all stuck and we've got sort of nothing more to do, and we had a little bit...
I thought one would take it off and just hold it over one's arms and sort of wait for Bill to finish his...
It gave him much greater experience, and a very useful one, of dealing with actors, which he hadn't had much of before, and this was, of course, extremely valuable for him when he came to make his first feature film.
I know enough about you to keep you in a rubber room for the rest of your life.
You know nothing about Eric. Oh, me, you know nothing about Eric.
I know he put the file through his guts. That you made him so happy he went and killed himself.
You want to kill me?
Eric is dead, you understand that? Eric is dead.
You make me feel I'm nothing.
I want you.
No, you want to crush me, but I won't let you. I'm the one thing you can't have like everything else.
I want you.
I want you to go.
I need you.
I want you to go. I want you to go. I want you to go.
He directed in a way that was almost non-directorial. Every time you turned a corner, he was there, facing you. Every time you turned around, he was at your shoulder. He almost was under your bed when you went to bed. Always with you, always talking about it, always investigating it, always planting seeds that one day you thought were all your own. You discovered there was a lot of his work. There's a great free spirit in Lindsay. And there's a great emotion in Lindsay, which, if you're able to touch it, it's wonderfully free and embracing.
Story's book is in the tradition of D.H. Lawrence, because it was about people who had very great difficulty in articulating their emotions, and the way then to bring this out was to convey this stylistically in the movie.
Lindsay's difficulty and his generosity in making it were really focused around that of trying to get inside some very personal experience from the outside and finding its rationale and being able in some way to understand it and not see it objectively or too objectively. So it became a very subjective, almost an expressionistic technique.
One would have thought that after this sporting life, that Lindsay would have been in great demand, but as it happened, the film did not make a great deal of money, and so he wasn't sort of a bankable director.
The man I had that terrible row with about 4 months ago.
The British cinema ran into quite a lot of trouble. The swinging London cinema came up, sort of a cinema of frivolity, which he greatly despised. And then eventually, he had the opportunity to make If, which came in with a sort of revolutionary period of the late 60s.
You mustn't think that I don't understand. It's a natural characteristic of adolescence.
Interestingly, Peter Jeffrey's dialogue in this scene was to a large extent lifted from a book called How Eton Works by an Eton housemaster.
I think you boys know that I keep an open mind on most things. And of one thing I am certain. Short hair is no indication of merit. So often I've noticed that it's the hair rebels who step into the breach when there's a crisis, whether it be a fire in the house or to sacrifice a week's holiday in order to give a party of slum children 7 days in the country.
The country was both, you know, arthritic in the sense that it's still arthritic, and yet there was, particularly amongst young people, a desire for change. So a school, a public school, would be a very good place to, would be precisely where you would set the metaphor, in that it was both traditional and yet somehow training people who were discontented.
You love it! All right, get it started. How many singers? How many singers? Watch him!
A film like If, really, you know, it comes out of Lindsay's documentary background. You know, you shoot in here and it's just a record of what it is like to be in this room. But then Lindsay also had done a lot of theatre work, so he knows how to dramatise material. But it's still drawn from life in a way that, you know, a Hollywood director would have started from, you know, he'd have built all this and he wouldn't have bothered to address the detail of it.
Like
It is a film which conveys, I think, what I feel about life, which is certainly a suspicion of all institutions and authorities. And as for it hitting the right moment, that was luck.
It was absolutely astonishing because you could see that it was transparently what everybody was interested in and went to the centre of their lives in that way that sometimes happens when you make films.
It was a film that came at a time of hope for Lindsay. His career is almost a barometer from the 1945, when, as a young army officer, he put the red flag up above the officers' mess in India, where he was then serving, right through to his disillusionment with Labour in the 70s.
Morning. Say hello to Mr. Travis. How do you do?
Pleased to meet you, Mr. Travis. Barlow, County Constabulary.
Pleased to meet you, Superintendent.
At your service. Oh, this is Mavis. Oh, you be nice to Mr. Travis, Mavis, but not too nice.
Happy to greet you.
Great pleasure.
Come here, come
Ladies and
here.
gentlemen, we come to the part of the show you've all been waiting for.
I think Lindsay was someone that needed support and encouragement. Despite this apparent self-sufficient, ironic, defiant exterior, and I think this started collapsing and disappearing. For one thing, I think the subjects of the films really went out of fashion, out of political fashion. I mean, once the 80s came, Lindsay was much too radical and too subversive in what he said about society and about England.
No art is worth much which doesn't aim to change the world. Of course, no artist can be judged by his success or failure to change the world, since none of us ever succeed. We can only hope to change or to influence like-minded spirits or hearts by telling the truth.
Anderson, as a film critic and as a film director, and these two things come together, is one of the great English moralists. He's a person who calls us as readers and as filmgoers to see that the film is of the utmost social importance. This is the kind of cinema he wanted to create, and it is quite wrong that he should not have had the opportunities to go on making movies. But the sad thing was that his own writing, his own example, meant so little to younger filmmakers, and so he was certainly neglected.
Would you like standard or golden service?
Standard, or what's the difference?
Well, on the golden service, they retexture and hand finish them.
Okay.
Yes?
Golden service.
Right. Keep a crease in the trousers?
Keep the crease,
right,
yes. And
okay.
don't forget I'm a shareholder.
Oh, do you ever let us forget?
I certainly can't afford to.